essentially looking at geographic information systems as a tool for decision-making process. I would also like to inform you that all these are tools. Basically, they have to be used. What we have done is we have developed a software which is on .NET called LUIS, Land and Urban Infrastructure Services. So this is my presentation, and this LUIS is going to be on the site. You can just download it, use it, and find it out. And I have also an observation that why do you want to call it a slum and slumping? Can we call it undeveloped habitat? The spatial planning of food settlement would require mapping at cadastral level. This is very, very important. City mapping has to be done at the cadastral level. Cadastral level is the scale of 1 to say 4,000 actually now, or 1 to 8,000 maps are there. Now there is an attempt to make it regularization at 1 to 5,000. These maps are to be the base maps on which you map your entire observations. Then you use a remote sensing. It may be a satellite picture, it may be an air photo. You use it as a tool to update these maps. Because these maps are definitely somewhat from the British times. Then use GIS. GIS is not just scanning of maps. Please bear it in mind. Earlier, till 2 years ago, GIS means they used to scan all the maps that are available and say they are the GIS maps. GIS is a tool towards the decision-making process. What GIS does, I'll come to it today. Then these have to be integrated with spatially oriented household services. Without that, you cannot do anything. And remote sensing, it basically requires some ground truth. Otherwise, remote sensing will not be a valid endeavor. Otherwise, I could tell you something. In the early days when I was in US being trained on USGS, on satellite imagery, they used to tell me a joke. I believe one fellow has recorded a black patch of rock, we call it a rock. And next pass of satellite never recorded it. It happened to be a buffalo sitting there. So you should always have a ground truth when you are talking of remote sensing. And particularly in India, where so many things happen. Coming to GIS, it is just a geographical information system. You should differentiate it from the statistical system. Statistical system also provides numbers, but they do not have spatial location. Whereas GIS provides for that same attribute a spatial location. You could go by a global location of lat and log, or you could go by a grid coordinate of north and south or east and west. Government of India has already borrowed a manual for GIS and MIS for RAY. It has borrowed one. Example, there is a manual on the land record computerization. There is a manual borrowed on land record, national land record computerization program. You have also got a manual in which YASDA has very significantly contributed on GIS, MIS system. You have also a manual which is brought out by the Ministry of Rural Development on land record computerization. So what is required is, YASDA says the contribution is they have identified layers, about 14 or 17 layers, where you map those GIS to those layers, like water supply, pipeline, electrical pipeline, electrical system, or municipal solid waste collection system. All these are thematic layers with the same spatial connotation. That is GIS. Now you want to integrate them. You take any 2 layers or any 3 layers, pass them through a filter, and you get some decision. There you make the decision process. Otherwise, GIS doesn't contribute anything. It only shows you where the things are. And particularly when you are doing a water station survey in slums, you will always get this data on you. So, government land record computerization program, which is spatially oriented, is now just mapping the slum boundaries, and they are not going inside. That is because the land record tenure is not there. So they have taken a uniform decision that slum boundaries are only to be mapped and other things are to be, other areas are getting mapped. So you have to work it out a compromise between whether we could introduce this land record computerization for the slum areas and then integrate it later with the city maps. That is the only way we can integrate, and without land record computerization, I think we are not going to go ahead at all with the slum development program. Because land becomes the important tool. Something like this, we have got number of layers, and which you can pass through one of them and then get the decision. This is a HD and LT lines with the transformers. So it knows that the gaps are identified, so maybe you can look at it. That is the integration of 2 or 3 layers together, and you get a decision support system. Next. So this is where we have to identify which areas have land record, which areas do not have land record. Next. So we have got a different kinds of ratings for land use of that municipal, each of the municipal service. Next. Another aspect of it, this is developed on one software called Bhumiti, which is a joint work of Revenue Department and our unit, Special Technologies, and that is doing all this work. We are not doing it on Bhumiti, and we are not using the Arkin for any of these basic mapping exercises. Next one. This is the electrical network in another part of the city. Next. We want to query who are the legal consumers, who are the unauthorized consumers. Once the data is fed spatially, you can identify this is the area where legal consumers are, this is the area where illegal tappings are being done. So this is another way of doing decision-making system from the GIS. This is on the thematic query. You can ask any of these questions. Once you put the load in, you will get the data. Land record computerization, we have a database including the owner, photograph of the owner. Now in this, I will also like to mention whether it is desirable to go not to put the landowner but his family. This is going to family, wife and children. The reason is we have recently done a survey of slums in Vizag using a gender specific questionnaire. And in that we find that, and we also find that people are 13,000 houses built in Vizag under HUPA. People have already sold them, they are not even elected. So if there is a case of the allotment being given in the name of the family, I think these resales will come down very fast. People would like to use them. Another thing is happening in the cities. Thanks to JNNUR, cities have expanded their limits. Hyderabad has gone from 500 to 700 kilometers. Visakhapatnam has gone from 200 to 500 square kilometers. From 50 watts to 72 watts. And what are these doing? They have integrated 32 or 35 villages into that. Surprisingly, all the new slums, the villages, central places have been taken as slums. How can you identify a village, Gramakantam as a slum? And they are now not notified, and they want to notify. So instead of 350 notified slums in Vizag, we have now have 700 slums. These are the different colors of an expanded area. Gramakantam is the center one.
The yellow one.
The center one. And the satellite image shows us that's opposite that. The next one is a congested area, which they would like to notify it, and the next one is a identified slum. Now we could also get one suggestion. Now when you use the satellite imagery, this is the easiest way to do it. You must also get the scale of it recorded, so that when you map it, the scale is also with you. Next one. And again, satellite imagery, Google imagery for example, looks very dirty. If you open it, you will see nothing in it. Do a small processing in it, you will see the clarity in it. You don't need to do digital processing at all. Put the thing on the PowerPoint, use the contrast and then the brightness imagery into icons like that. You will get a better image like this than what you do. Next, you wanted to find out about our satellite imagery itself could be used. Now, same Gramakantam area, what you have seen, this is the image, we have done mapping of that. Next one. This is how you get it. But this is not the detail. You have to go through the ground level surveys and then improvise it, include it in the base map. Next. These same three have been done. You can see more detail in Ramakantam area. That has to be done by local map. But initial decision making could be attempted. You must know your contours. Otherwise, without that contours, you will not be able to plan your drainage, you will not be able to plan your gradient of the roads, you will not be able to plan many aspects of city utilities. This is the same area, we have mapped the contours, and then this is done with the station, and then we superpose that same thing on that, and you will get same area, what you have seen. Because these are all having land records, we are able to map them, whereas slums don't have that. So they have taken a decision to give a boundary of the site at the slum area. And when you get the land records of the slum area, then you integrate it with the other. Yes. We have also a system called NUIS, which is being implemented by town and country planning office. NUIS has no relevance when it comes to food sector. NUIS must reinvent itself. It has to have input, because ultimately that NUIS is a decision-making process system for us, for planners. If complete attributes of NUIS, the way our food settlements are avoided is that, how can you make any decision-making system? So this is a renewed, there is a national requirement that NUIS, National Urban Information System, has to be redesigned to focus on the food settlements and the needs of the urban people. Now another one is cities are expanding. If cities are expanding, you are going to have new settlements coming into the urbanization. You got to convert these rural habitats, develop them as based on Kalam's Purva, so that your migrations and all will come down. So for that, this expansion of urban fringe to away from the center, it has to be taken duly care of. And one method of doing it is utilizing micro watersheds. And micro watersheds. And here again I would like to bring topo sheets, survey of India sheets on scale of 25,000 are available. Please digitize them, correlate it with the cadastre, and then maybe you could arrive at a 12,500 scale map in between, which is all the inputs of topo sheets, all the inputs of cadastre. This is what we have done right here in this. Now a lot of things are coming up, I leave it to you.
If this process is all about slums, then what?
You got to collect data. First of all, what I would like to do is, I think I would like to prioritize service sector in slums. Don't go into tenancy. First of all, map it as far as the roads, infrastructure, utilities are concerned. Give them a map first. And then at least you can bring in the integration of the slum infrastructure with the town infrastructure. And use only this kind of thing to notify slums on government land, on land tenure, then go to non-notified slums.
No sir, this is not acceptable to this bunch of people who are working with slums.
What do you mean?
See, the whole purpose of RAID is to acknowledge that there are slums.
They are there.
They are on different lands.
Yeah.
And so one of the demands of a lot of us is, so we are also saying that first identify the boundaries, find out who is the landowner, and then catch the neck of the housing secretary to find out how to deal with that land.
No, not only that, one more aspect in this, you must have a cut-off date on which a particular slum boundary is defined.
That also we feel RAID will not permit, sir.
We will have to discuss.
Well,
Let's have an interesting discussion here, which is that if you accept that today, I don't know what the census says now, but supposing we are around 30-35% urban, and in the next 20 years we are going to be 50, 45, even 40, 45%, where are those people are going to come into cities?
In fact, I was very much worried about one more thing you raised earlier also. All the infrastructure, I have got all the infrastructure you are now building under MOUD program. Where is the labor coming from, and ultimately they will develop into new towns. And where do they stay? When a villager comes into the city, he goes to the place where his other relations are there or his village people are there. And there he will develop another slum. He will put his shack next door to his. So what I am saying is, why a demarcation is, we will at least know how much is immigration. So, in the city, for planning purposes, you've got to have some basic tenets.
You were saying identify the owner of the structure. Now, ownership of a structure where there is some patta, there is a land record, that may be okay. But in many cases where it is non-notified, it is somebody else's land, a person may be the owner of a structure, but not of the land upon which the structure rests. So therefore, I mean, in some places the terminology or the concept is of the occupant, without going into the question of his title, lack of title to that particular plot of land or ownership of even the structure. I think that would be a more...
Sir, my own submission is here. There are 4 or 5 types of land where these structures are coming from. Or endowment land or some central government areas. If it's a private land, put up a shack or something, definitely he is an enclosure. So we have a tenancy and a original occupancy. Both have to be recorded. Otherwise, how do I going to put the rights again? You are not going to promote enclosures.
All the data collection is right now about statistical information. But there's another important thing that we must know. Today is about actually ensuring that slums that exist today are removed, and in the future we create a system by which these slums do not come up again. Now if that has to happen, we must understand the progression of a person when he comes into a city, which is what you were trying to explain. I would like to suggest one small, sample survey, which is that let's study the movement of a family over a period of say 30 years. When a family comes in from an outside some village, comes into the city, he automatically zeroes in onto a place where there are some people from his known people. First he goes to a slum, but by the time he's been in that area for about 15-20 years, he has actually bought other properties within the city. So what I'm actually getting to is that a cutoff, like say a 1995 cutoff, would actually end up giving houses to people who already have made properties elsewhere, and the real poor will again get left out of the ambit. I understand the constraint, which is the data collection constraint, but I don't know, to arrive at a solution, perhaps this kind of a study needs to be done, to study the progression of people once they come in over a 15-20 years.
Another one interesting in this context, yesterday there was a study by the centers. They showed one slide where 20 years later they came and moved in. But that slide lacks the data. I don't know whether they have collected it but not shown. How are they? Are they immigrants? Who are they? People who are, they are definitely different tenants now to whom they are 20 years ago.
When we get into ownership issues, we should keep it as simple as possible, in the sense that we are talking about informal settlements, where the various hierarchy of ownership is existing. If we say that we are only looking at the land ownership and the occupier, the occupant, then it is the simplest thing to happen. Otherwise, we have 3-4 layers.
Yeah.
There is a landowner, there is a structure owner. In Maharashtra, we call the structure owners as slumlords, because people on a private land owned by A has given it to some B who put some 150 structures there, and he collects the rent from those 150 people. There is a third level of a subtenant, a tenant and a subtenant. Now, if we get into that, these are all informal arrangements. There is no written legal agreement between all these things. So a simpler thing would be the land ownership which is clearly available from the collector's record,
Land
and
everywhere.
the person who is occupying the structure.
That's all.
We need to do it as simple as that. But otherwise we have problems.
But first of all, you should have a boundary limit. As we are doing in Karnataka, Bellary, we are marking the outer boundary of slum as shown by the municipal authorities. It may, some people may have tenancy, some people may not have tenures at all. But that slum boundary will fix the thing, and then involve the local community to map the details inside. That is the only way you can get more data and more reliable data.
What way guidelines have provided is a little more complicated for a user to understand what exactly has to go into mapping. Because at this point of time, we don't even have the baseline maps. So my request to you as a GIS expert is that why don't we first take the first step first, which is yesterday's some of the presentations which brought in the communities to map themselves. Whosoever is living in whatever area, let's map that first and let that be taken city-wide initially, and then go into the software which is there, and and layer it up with other information.
You may be asked by many to hold a workshop to help them understand. Shall we clap for?
No. Sorry about